Jet Set Willy. Yeah, that music isn't great. Let's not play that for long. Audio aside, I'm not sure how much of an impact Jet Set Willy had on the wider world, but here in the UK, it was a big deal. The hotly anticipated sequel to the massive hit Manic Miner, brought to life on the ZX Spectrum by that whiz kid from the Wirral, Matt Smith. A very old school collect-em-up platformer of the type they just don't make anymore. Bigger and more ambitious than its predecessor, it was a major hit. Casting the player in the role of the now wealthy erstwhile miner Willy, tasked with cleaning up his rambling new money mansion after a night on the source. These days, well, it shows its age in many ways. It is though shot through with absurdist humour and wild invention that still has its charms even in the 21st century. Of course, today, no major developer would dream of shoving out a big title without a few game-breaking bugs just to keep everybody on their toes. Hey, we all love corrupted save files and massive multi-gig patches. Back then though, major glitches were a major headache. Long before online connectivity was essential on home systems, patching games once they'd gone out the door was not so easy. Sadly though, for publishers' software projects, Jet Set Willy was hampered by what turned out to be quite a handful of bugs, making the game, in its first release on the Speccy, unbeatable. Chief amongst these, certainly the most notable and intractable, was the attic bug, a glitch that's gone down in infamy amongst Speccy fans and one that remains one of the most subtle and frustrating from this era of gaming. The problem? Well, it's an odd one. Jet Set Willy has a non-linear game world that lets you take its rooms in any order you like, but no matter which route you take, after you visit the attic near the top of the mansion, things start to go awry. In certain locations, bad guys disappear. That annoying nasty on the bridge seems to have vanished. The priest's hole is now cheerfully obstruction-free, and the once crowded chapel, well, now Willy has it to himself. Surely this doesn't look so bad. This glitch is making things easier. What's the problem? Well, try visiting the kitchen. The east wall, or that essential feature of every new build mansion, the mega tree. Yes, insta-kill every time, all your lives lost with absolutely no escape. So what on earth is going on? Well, it turns out that an errant arrow is to blame, shot not across the screen as it was meant to, but right through the game's code, wreaking havoc as it goes. Yes, cleverly timed arrows are one of the many perils that Willy must avoid, and one of the two, supposed to be in the attic, has a bit of a problem. Now, to really understand this, it might be helpful to know a bit about how Jet Set Willy draws its graphics. Like a lot of Speccy games, it uses a screen buffer, basically an area of memory where the graphics are composed before they are copied to the video memory and turned into an image on the screen, which helps to reduce flicker. The graphics that make up each frame of animation, the backgrounds, enemies, Willy himself, are pasted into the correct locations depending where he is and what's happening on the screen, before being sent off to be drawn by what passes for the Spectrum's graphics chip. And this is where the arrow comes in. An error in the original program, probably a simple typo, sets the arrow's vertical position way too low, not in the screen buffer, but right in the middle of the game's code. The bit of the program that deals with the arrow, not knowing any better, then sends it on its merry way right through important data. The arrow's graphics being pasted in a new place for each frame drawn, until it reaches the edge of what should be the screen. Thanks to the slightly weird way the Spectrum's graphics memory is arranged and the way the game's graphics are updated, three separate sections of memory then left with an imprint of the arrow's path. Their data now hopelessly garbled by being overwritten with the arrow's graphics. Part of the memory that's corrupted is never used, so it does no harm, but some of it turns out to be code that defines the Guardians, those moving bad guys. Some of them are corrupted so badly they simply don't show up, as in the chapel or the beach. Others though have their collision detection seriously messed up, meaning that Willy is killed as soon as he sets foot on their screen, whether he touches those baddies or not. This game may be chock full of gotchas, but that seems a bridge too far, an issue that was noted fairly early on, even some of the initial reviews mentioning it. Publisher Software Project's response was one that has echoed through the ages. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Yes, to make things deliciously more challenging, those rooms are filled with poison gas after you've been to the attic. It's completely supposed to be like that, honestly. That was the official line, and it may have held people off for a while, but in the end it didn't really wash with gamers, especially considering the other little flaws on display too. To complete this game, the player is required to collect all the flashing items in the mansion, a task made impossible by an extra crop of glitches that meant that 3 of those key items can't be picked up. One in the conservatory roof right next to a nasty that kills the player when they try and touch it. One in an area of the orangery you just can't get to thanks to a misplaced scenery tile in the banyan tree below. And the final one on the landing, not only plain unreachable, but to add insult to injury, invisible too. Oh dear, especially bad news for anyone trying to win the publisher's promotional competition. Fabulous prizes being offered to the first person who could get in touch and prove they beat the game by coming up with a number of items you need to collect to trigger the ending. Pretty quickly it became obvious that the only way forward was through some serious hacking, the more technically minded Speccy gamers of the era rising to the challenge of reverse engineering the code in little time. Just 3 months after release, it was solved. The prize ultimately going to 2 enterprising young disassemblers, Ross Holman and Cameron Else, who contacted software projects not just with the magic number of items, but also the bug fixes required to get the game to a beatable state. An impressive debugging, especially considering that they would have had nothing like the sophisticated development tools that we have today. These fixes being officially published by an apparently slightly embarrassed software project as a type-in listing in the magazines of the day. And not only did the lads get their prize, but Cameron Else also went on to port the game to the MSX, and a fine job he did too, apparently one of the few versions of this game that was beatable. All that reverse engineering knowledge gleaned by eager Speccy hackers didn't go to waste either. A good decade before Doom Wads became the hot thing on the internet, Jet Set Willy develops quite a modding scene. With its inner workings laid bare, editing tools cropped up and modded games were passed around on cassettes, some of them even making it as far as commercial release, surely one of the first games to get this treatment. Time might not have been all that kind to Jet Set Willy. Even by the late 80s it was, thanks to some Italian plumbers, starting to look like a bit of a relic of a bygone era. Back then though, it was both innovative and influential, a milestone in British game development history, whose legacy was, if anything, helped rather than hindered by its buggy release and the hacking it inspired. There's no such thing as bad publicity, as they say, and the attic bug got plenty, keeping the game in the media spotlight of the day and on the minds of a generation of gamers.